Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé. Let's watch and see what comes out of my face.
It seems as though there is a pattern happening here with people feeling that they're being isolated from Libby's life. And there is a common denominator in that being Andrei. So I think a lot of us fear that no one is off limits. And it also feels that
Mind blown. I've said this literal thing before, not in these words. And I don't know if this is what she's saying, but it sounds like this is what she's saying. And it's interesting that the first person that wants the conch, the shell in Lord of the Flies, and it's kind of an apt analogy to Lord of the Flies. And the first person is Jen, and she says what I've been saying, which is that when Andrei came into the picture, it threw off, and she's not saying this directly, but I'm sort of adding this bit, that with the addition of Andrei, it threw the family into a different configuration. They had to accommodate this new person, especially given how enmeshed / close this family is. Because in other families, you can add a spouse and it wouldn't change the family configuration that much because they're not so involved in each other's daily lives and emotional lives. But when Andrei came in, it somehow challenged the entire family. I'd wonder exactly why, because there were other spouses that were added, right? And maybe they went through similar problems, but it's possible they didn't. Maybe because there was, Charlie saw Andrei as a rival, as a threat to his closeness and his also financial security with Chuck. Turned out to be true, that the conflict between Charlie and Andrei resulted in Charlie losing his job and his father. So now I think it was a self-fulfilling prophecy because Charlie inadvertently engineered that given the way he was reacting. But in the beginning, he sees Andrei as similar to him, or the way Chuck was treating him, or the fact that Andrei didn't really have a job. And so everyone was worried that he was going to edge in on the family business. And instead of just waiting and seeing or incorporating him in, they were just like, no, we want our dad to ourselves and we want the finances to ourselves. We don't want any competition. We have enough as it is between each other or something like that. Who knows? But for whatever reason, he entered. Another possibility as to why it perturbed the regular homeostasis was that Libby might have played a role that Andrei actually helped Libby not to play anymore. Libby might have been the nice, cute young one who was always accommodating and was always smoothing everything over. And then Andrei comes in and Libby starts to complain to Andrei about some of the things that are happening. And Andrei's like, you don't have to put up that shit. And Libby's like, yeah, I don't have to put up that shit. And then that sends the family into this complete chaos of just like, what are we going to do without Libby doing what she normally does in this family? Or who knows? There's a lot of possibilities. I mean, certainly Andrei is a very noticeable personality, whereas I think the other husbands tend to maybe blend in a little bit more, if you will. But anyway, so it threw it off, and a lot of, and I'll rewind it because Jen said it so well, is that the uncertainty that this added to the family gave everyone anxiety that they were going to lose everyone. And that's what I've been saying from the beginning. It's like, why are they attacking him so much? There must be something deeper. There must be something fundamental to this family that they feel as though Andrei is as a threat. Usually at the bottom of all of our worries and hopes and fears is closeness and security and loyalty and dedication and love and attention and intimacy and attunement. That's what we need. We thrive on that. We need that. And families are the facilitators of that. Spouses, children, siblings, parents. We depend on our family members for them to meet our needs along those lines. Do you love me? Okay, you love me. I love you too. Do you support me? Can you help me? Oh, okay, good. I'll support you. And we need that deeply, not only on a practical level, but on an emotional level more so. And so since the family going through the divorce and whatever else was going on in the past, they are not secure in that love and attention and place in the family. Andrei comes in, and for whatever reason, it just completely tweaks everyone, and everyone starts freaking out like fundamentally they're going to lose each other, that they individually are probably thinking, I'm going to lose out. Andrei's coming in, I'm losing. And so what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Well, get rid of Andrei. We just have to, you just sort of become, it's sort of like if you're on a boat you're on the Titanic and you get into a dinghy, a life raft, and there's too many people, and you're just like, there's too many people on the boat, and it's not going to be me getting off the boat. People will do is start pushing people off the boat because it's not going to be me. I don't want to die. If I was in a better place, I wouldn't be pushing people off the boat and literally murdering them, but I don't want to die. Or if you're trying to protect your family and your kids, you're like, my kids aren't going to be the one dying. You're going, So if you're that desperate for your needs, then you'll do anything that you need to do. And if it means completely locking in, and if everyone agrees, you feel justified. It's like, well, we all agree that Andrei's the problem when he's not. The underlying problem is that you have a history in the family where there's been attachment and security.
I'll go first.
What?
Okay. It seems as though there is a pattern happening here with people feeling.
Did I just see Megan crying? Or was she just getting something in her eye? I don't know why that is interesting to me, but let's rewind.
I'll go first.
What?
Okay. It seems as though there is a pattern.
Yeah, impossible to tell. It could be either. It certainly doesn't look like Charlie is acknowledging that she's crying or something, but
It seems as though there is a pattern happening here with people feeling that they're being isolated from Libby's life. And
all right, so she specifically says isolated from Libby's life, not from the family. But I think that's I don't know, but I think it's a proxy. I think they're worried about losing Libby, and if they lose Libby, then they can lose everyone and they'll lose themselves. And I think she directly says that in a second.
it seems as though there is a pattern happening here with people feeling that they're being isolated from Libby's life. And there is a common denominator in that being Andrei. So I think a lot of us fear that no one is off limits. And it also feels that she doesn't really have her own voice in the matter.
Okay, so let's see what the therapist says, Dr. Malloy. And so, Jen is still basically saying what she would say before that is a problematic point of view. But so I don't know if I'm just reading into it as it's like, yay, I think I hear something that is rational and healthy. But it's possible that we just heard kind of a watered down version of what they always say. I don't know. Let's see what the therapist does here.
Fear that no one is off limits. And it also feels that she doesn't really have her own voice in the matter.
So can you pass the ball?
All right, so that's good. So instead of interpreting or intervening, she's just facilitating a back and forth. Okay, so go to Libby. And I think Libby is capable of positive communication or healthy of really everyone in this family. I think maybe Chuck and Libby might be the best able to communicate in a diplomatic way. So let's see what she says.
Over to her.
I hear that you're saying that you think that my husband heavily influenced me.
Well, let me have a ball. Can I speak
No, because
Andrei, shut the F up. Put that on a shirt. It was, yeah. Look at her face. It's just like, shut up. You're not helping. You're not helping, Andrei. Shut up.
I hear that you're saying that you think that my husband heavily influenced me.
Well, let me have a ball. Can I speak
No, because I'm not finished.
We want to talk to Libby.
I'm still like, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that. He doesn't influence that whatsoever. Even if he might not be on good terms with you guys at that time, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm not going to go.
So he picks up his phone, which, God damn, Andrei, what is wrong with you? Like, just calm down. Now, I get it, because he has been, you could argue, abused by this family for years. So he's probably having a lot of anxiety and a lot of lack of control. And he believes, erroneously, that his path to control is to aggressively dominate the conversation and to make threats and to act like a child, apparently. So if I were the therapist, I would consider this conversation to be good because the ball is being used, and I wouldn't let Andrei derail. I would actually interpret this, either accurately or not, that Andrei doesn't like being out of control, and so he was trying to dominate. And because he wasn't allowed to dominate, he's now being a teenager by pulling out his phone.
Whatsoever. Even if he might not be on good terms with you guys at that time, I'm not going to be like, okay, I'm not going to go because you don't like them right now.
Okay,
Like,
that's good to know.
Stupid.
That's good to hear.
That has been communicated to Jen dozens of times on this show. So Jen's like, oh, okay, well, that's good to hear. I'm glad I know that. It's like, what? You've never believed her in the past. And I doubt she believes her now. But at the very least, this is a really great routine that they're in with the ball, and there's some good communication, and it's vulnerable for Jen to say that. She's like, look, I just am worried I'm going to lose Libby, that I'm losing my sister. So if I were a therapist, this is my style, it's Satyrian, I would really zero in on that and say, okay, Jen, thank you. So you're saying, and again, my instrument is my body and my voice and my face and my vibe, and I want to use my instrument as a therapist to help. And I would determine in this moment that in order to help, I have to really galvanize the entire room, including Andrei while he's on the phone, by really playing up or dramatically active listening by saying what I'm hearing from you. So I'd really try to make sure everyone's looking at me, And I would have a lot of hand movements and say, Jen, what I'm hearing from you is really great. And thank you for saying, then everyone's like, oh, what's happening? Because I'm really kind of pouring it on. So you're saying that you are worried that you are going to lose Libby. And not only Libby, because you don't want to lose Libby, but if you do lose Libby, then you're saying anyone. You could lose anyone. Is that what I'm hearing you say? Because that was basically what I was saying. It's like, okay, so what because I would really key in on that, because that's often at the foundation, in my opinion, of all this stuff. So what you're saying is that a lot of the conflict that has been happening stems from, at least for you, in your opinion, that anxiety of losing each other. Is that what I'm hearing? Now, in all likelihood, I wouldn't get a lot of tremendous buy-in. Jen might be like, well, yeah, I mean, I worry about losing Libby, and I don't know, Andrei's the problem. There'll be a resistance there. But I'm introducing a new hypothesis, a new paradigm, at least for them to look at. Who knows if it'll resonate with them ongoing, but I find that if I keep asking, like, is that what we're hearing? Of course, I will avoid trying to just brainwash them into my way of thinking. But if I keep asking, and it'll raise awareness of just like, well, he keeps asking about, like, do we feel close to each other? And because it's possible that they don't want to ask that question of themselves because they're afraid of the answer, and thus are hyper focusing on particular scapegoats like Charlie and Andrei. It's much easier to attack Andrei than to contemplate the possibility that no one's really close in this family.
My family is putting the blame on my husband for every little situation instead of taking responsibility for their actions. My husband actually has opened my eyes, because for so many years I have like this anger and this anxiety, and I didn't know why. And he's
okay, so that lends itself to the idea I had earlier that what happened when because Jen was saying Andrei, and they've been basically saying this from the beginning, is like Andrei is the problem, and they simplify it to say that Andrei is pulling Libby away from the family and controlling her. But I was hypothesizing earlier, and possibly in earlier episodes, that what really happened was that Libby was upset about how things were going in the family, but had no ally, had no one, and even when she would voice that to people in her family, they would put her down or tell her that she's stupid or ignore her or something. And so she's just like, oh, okay, I guess that I'm the crazy one. And then Andrei comes along with his way and convinces her, it's like, yeah, maybe my family does treat me badly. And Andrei's like, yeah, your family's a piece of crap. And she's like, huh. And now Libby doesn't go full Andrei, never go full Andrei, but she is, allowed to be upset. And so she starts to actually voice that, and the family doesn't like that. So they actually start to see her as breaking the family loyalty, as not being a team player, and threatening the whole system. And when you start to threaten the whole system, everyone gets anxious, and they'll do what they got to do to stop you.
It's like, it's your mother effing family. And it's true, because there's so much dysfunction. Their relationships are fake. And if they say they're happy for you, they turn around and stab you in the back, or they talk about you and gossip.
Interesting. So she's saying their relationships are fake. They'll stab you in the back. They're not really on your side. That's interesting. So that's what she's been complaining about, but never felt able to believe about herself until Andrei supported her. And then when she started to push back on that or call out or something, that's when the whole system turned against her. Well, turned against Andrei. Because, I've been saying that from the beginning too. It's like Libby is independently bothered by her family, but the family refuses to see it that way. They're just like, it can't be Libby. It can't be Libby. Libby can't be the one saying that. It must be Andrei. Andrei must be brainwashing her to say this. And that's interesting that you couldn't conceive of a possibility that Libby would actually have complaints about the family. That says something about it's almost like a cult feeling, like you're either one of us or you're crazy, that kind of thing.
But me choosing to not talk to certain people is my decision. My husband's not controlling it.
I do want to say something. Honestly, you guys are a husband and wife. You have every right to announce your pregnancy however you want to. However, why wouldn't you tell the baby's grandmother? I found out through social media.
Okay, so this would seem like an odd time to bring this up, but it's family therapy. This is what the mom wants to bring up. I think the mom is seemingly bringing this up as an example of how, maybe another example of how Andrei is brainwashing Libby. Certainly Libby herself wouldn't not tell us. It must be Andrei that's preventing her from telling us. I don't know, but I imagine that's why she's bringing it up. But as a therapist, you could actually work with that and say, so tell me how that made you feel when you found out through social media. What was going on there? And hopefully the mom would say, well, it hurt my feelings. Okay, so it hurt your feelings. Libby, what do you think about that? And then Libby would say, well, I don't know. I just thought, I don't know. So you have at least maybe an example of how repair can happen in therapy or something, or truth, because I think the truth is that Libby would say, well, I on purpose didn't tell you guys because I didn't want to interact with you guys, because the last time I interacted with you guys, you said that you wished my family were torn apart by immigration services. That's what you guys said. So I was bothered by that and didn't want to interact with you for a while.
Media that you were pregnant.
I hear that you were hurt by that, and I'm sorry. I wasn't intending to hurt anybody.
For some reason, over the last year, with everything else going on, Andrei's trying to shut me out from being around you as well. And he's told me that he's doing that.
Yeah, so that was my suspicion, that Pamela's just bringing it up because she thinks that it's all Andrei's fault, because that's the cult paradigm. That's the excuse. Couldn't possibly be Libby. It must be Andrei.
The fact that I said that I will isolate you. The instances like the trust come from recent events that we had in our life. Because I have some problems with the immigration right now. So we had an immigration interview now, when they told me now, that somebody.
Well, this isn't going to go well, because it's not like the family is going to go oh, you caught us. Yep, we tried to get you. So I can't imagine, but that happens, and it's on his mind, so it's good for the therapist to know about this. I'm just worried that they're never going to go to any more sessions, because a typical family therapy, particularly this situation, would require at least 10, if not 50 sessions. It wouldn't be unusual for that. So I'm worried that we're just seeing this one session situation.
But that is a possibility.
Yeah, and I was I cannot trust anybody. Just over here, how can I trust somebody that they may have reported?
Are you making that up? Can we get proof from your immigration lawyer?
Yeah. What are you talking about, Rebecca? I went to the office.
The office, the lawyer, whatever. You're saying that someone in our family...
Yes, I'm saying that.
Do you have proof of that?
I don't have proof of that.
Okay, so this would be another time to intervene with the ball thing of just okay, one person at a time, because... So this is what I would do. I'd be okay. Let's tackle this another time. And I would actually try to throw the family a bone a little bit and just say, okay, so what I'm hearing from you is that you did not report him. Is that what I'm hearing? That's what you're saying. You did not report Andrei. And Andrei might be well, they might have. And I'd be okay, Andrei, but what I'm hearing from you is that even though in my head I might be they might have reported him, but it's just in the first session, there's not, if they did do it, or one of them did it, they're not going to admit it in this context. So it's just a better idea to just say, okay, well, let's not try to go to this place. Be okay, so what you're saying is you didn't do it. Yeah, you didn't. Okay, well, so Andrei, they're saying they didn't do it. They might have, but they're saying they didn't. But what you're saying, Andrei, is that you wonder if they are because they've been against you for a long time. That's what you're saying, right? Yeah, they could have done. Okay, Andrei, let me drill down. You're saying that because of what's happened in the past, there's a possibility that someone reported you that you don't know if they didn't, because they might have, because in your mind they could have done it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, they could have done it. And the family, like, we did. Okay, I hear you. You did not do it. That's what you're telling me. None of you did that. Yeah, okay, and that would be horrible if any of you did. And I just can't imagine really anyone doing that. So what you're saying is you didn't, Andrei. But you wonder. And there's no way to know. So okay, I hear we're not going to resolve that today. But let's try to drill down on some feelings. Okay, so for you, Andrei, what's going on there? So, what about you, Libby? So I'd try to just kind of more dictate this conversation a little bit better instead of letting them go at it like this. I don't think that this would be productive.
There's proof of that.
It takes only one phone call.
Because I think you could be making that up.
But you can say whatever you want right now. That's what I'm saying. It's a reality. Somebody can.
I'd also be noting that Andrei is getting aggressive. I would actually be a little concerned that maybe violence would happen in this moment. So I'd be noting that, just like his physical intensity. I don't think he would haul off and hit Becky, but if I didn't know the situation, I would be wondering about that.
Have a phone call or an email, and that's all it takes.
Like we care about you, bro? Like, we're gonna report you?
He's just saying the attorney told that's all.
The attorney told us.
I mean, I have to say that Andrei and Libby have every reason to believe that every single one of the people in that room, except for Chuck and Libby and the therapist, would report him. Absolutely. Maybe not Pamela. She doesn't, and Pamela's husband. I guess we could add him to the list. But Charlie and Becky and I guess Jen to some extent as well. Well, for sure, Jen, Becky, and Charlie. Given what we've seen on the show, if it's anything reflective of reality, I would not have any surprise if I had heard that all three of them had reported him anonymously to immigration. Absolutely. I mean, yeah, Becky said as much. She said she wished that he was deported. Like, in this very, very lack of empathy sort of way, let's just say.
What are you talking about? Like, I'm gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna get Andrei deported, bro. Like, no, nobody.
Plus, the political landscape of this family, I'm just going to take a guess and say that the echo chamber they reside in would cheer them for doing that. There are people in my country, their sole focus in life is making sure that the immigrants don't take our gerbs, and they don't come in with the rapists and the drugs. And it's just like, Americans are fully capable of doing all those things to their fellow citizens. So worrying about immigrants doing it as if somehow those are the sole criminals that anyway, I think research, at least from my memory, I'm not up to date on all this stuff, is that people who come to the United States tend to follow the law more closely, tend not to commit crimes because they're extremely concerned about being deported and they're trying to work. They have more to lose because there's so much at stake for them if they do get deported. So the rates of crime among these individuals is less than American citizens, from my memory. Yeah, I actually looked up research, and there's dozens of studies that go back dozens or decades that demonstrate that Americans who were born in the United States have a much higher rate of committing crimes and being convicted in a court of law than people coming from outside the United States. So, yeah. But you ask a certain echo chamber, and they believe all the crimes are being committed by the dirty foreigners.
The fact that he would accuse our family saying we called immigration on him, like, bro, nobody even knows about your immigration status or cares.
We don't know anything about immigration.
Like, you're not that important.
Absolutely not.
I mean, I don't know about Charlie. I can't remember a time when he mentioned it, but the other two sisters have frequently talked about it, how they wish that he would go back to his home country of Moldova, I believe. So, I mean, maybe Charlie doesn't think about it. We don't actually see that much from him, particularly in later seasons. But do we believe that Charlie wouldn't love it if Andrei were to be deported? I mean,
family saying we called immigration on him. Like, bro, nobody even knows about your immigration status or cares.
We don't know anything about immigration.
Like, you're not that important.
Absolutely not.
Nobody called immigration on Andrei.
Don't
Now, is it possible that no one in the family called immigration? Yeah, it's totally possible. In fact, if I were to make a bet, I would say the family hasn't, because there's at least a perception, I would imagine, that they would worry that would get back around, and then Libby would really hate them, or it would come out in the media that they did that, which would incur a lot of hate from the fans of the show. So, would they mind if it happened? I don't think so. In fact, I know that they would prefer if he were to be deported. But would they actually take that leap and research, who to contact and actually reach out to those people? Having said that, I'm guessing there's an anonymous tip line, but, who knows? I would take a guess and say that they hadn't. But is it possible that they have? Yeah, absolutely. Andrei would be stupid not to imagine that that's possible. I think Andrei might put too much stock in that theory, and I think Libby doesn't believe that it's likely. So anyway.
Who knows about your immigration status?
What do you mean who knows? Because I came here on a visa. This family therapy session, it's a waste of time. I don't believe any of them. They're just disgusting. I need to cut them off because we have much more serious problems than...
It's sad because I think Jen actually did open a door to a healthy conversation between Libby and Jen. And then it got derailed very quickly, right, with Pamela. Interesting that Pamela, it's hard to know what her motivation was consciously or unconsciously, but in terms of the way it was edited, Pamela introduces this idea in a very subtle way. It's just like, knowing that Andrei would take the bait by saying what she said, and then we're off to the races once again and able to scapegoat Andrei. So it's unfortunate. And what I would hope that the therapist at least tried to do, and I've talked about this before, but just very briefly, is that to be an effective family therapist in the first session, you have to have a good closer. And usually you want to start the closing about 5 minutes to the end. You don't want things to be flaring up to the last minute and then they walk out the door, because you want them to come back. You want them to have hope, because there is hope for this family, absolutely, and things take time. And if they keep working at it, then they will likely get better. That's usually what happens. So you can't have them heading out the door feeling like it was a complete failure and that it's never going to work. So you have to have a way of legitimately, without coercing them into believing that therapy could help. And so usually that amounts to, at least in the first few sessions, at the end, at the very least, they're relatively calm. And so you can start to point out strengths and draw connections and try to infuse some optimism. So I hope the therapist did that.
And these bastards to think about. Me and Libby, we've been through a lot already. And now I might lose everything that I've built here. But if I'm gonna end being deported, Libby's definitely gonna come with me. It's not even a discussion. We're a family. We're going everywhere together. At least we're not gonna have these disgusting people around us anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally viable, and I don't know if very many people would blame Libby and Andrei for cutting off themselves from the family. Not Chuck, but because Andrei works for Chuck, but to cut everyone else out of the family. And if they believe that Andrei is the abusive brainwasher of Libby, then I guess so be it. Let's just call it quits, and we will never see each other again. That happens, and it's unfortunate, but there's certainly a lot of health that can be attained that way. There's a loss, and there's a lot of tears and a lot of grieving that everyone would have to do, but it's a viable option for them. Okay, well, that does it for that episode. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.